Welcome to Explorations. In this second of a four-part conversation we're having with Seth Kahan, the author of Visionary Leadership, Getting Change Right, and Getting Innovation Right, Seth discusses the power of disruption and how it has accelerated change in organizations, especially today, and how to harness its force for growing your organization and reorienting its story of the future. So let's get to it. Since you left the bank, you have you dove into the world of associations, one, and working with leaders of associations around the whole issue around embracing disruption. Tell us a little more about that concept and how you see it weaving together with this power of story.
Well, so I think of disruption as energy. It's just like when you're sailing a boat. A really good sailor knows how to take any wind and turn it into forward motion. And disruption is a form of energy. It's a wind. And a lot of people think of disruption as, a headwind or something that's blowing them off course. The reality is if you can figure out how to harness that, it'll do a good job of carrying you towards your goal. And so the question is not how do we avoid disruption or how do we sidestep disruption, but how do we harness it? And it's a lot like a judo move to me. When in judo, when your opponent's coming at you, your goal is to put both you and your opponent in a safe position using their energy. And I think that's a powerful way to frame something. It's not to take the guy out. It's to put both of you in a place of safety using the energy that they're, and so that's disruptions coming at you. And what you want to do is you want to be in right relationship with it and you want it to move you forward into where you go. And story is an extremely powerful tool because story is a lot about context. Story is as much about context as it is about content. And it's that frame that allows you to see disruption differently. So just quick example, let's say that you're selling wholesale to small retail chains and, it's the mortgage crisis of 2008, 2009, and people don't have money and they can't buy food to put on their shelves to sell. Well, you could look at that and you could say, this is an opportunity for me to get closer to my customers. Maybe I could loan them money. Maybe I could actually make money loaning them money at interest rates lower than the banks or in a safe way. They could use that money to buy my products and I could make money two ways from them and they could survive. That's an example of harnessing that disruption. And if you do it in a friendly term, your customer is going to be grateful to you for doing it. Not feel like, oh, now they're taking advantage of me twice. But instead, this person's actually making it possible for me to take care of my family and survive this time of stress. And so that's, you've taken one story and you've broadened the context and turned it into another story that has an opposite meaning. Instead of about this is the end of your business, this is how you're going to survive. And we're going to work together. So story has an important role to play in taking advantage of disruption.
It makes me think that story has a yin and yang kind of quality to it. And so like fire, fire can be terribly destructive, but it also can give us warmth and keep us surviving in a cold climate. Or water, we can be drowning through floods, right. Or it can sustain us and spiritually and in many other ways. So it seems like story also has that capacity, if it's used properly and harnessed properly, to really propel us. And I think that's what you're doing, is you're helping people get a handle on the story and not be a victim of it.
Right.
But actually to become a master of the story. Yeah. So right now we've gone through a fair amount of disruption this last year, both economically and societally. How are you working with your leaders in this environment right now? This is extreme disruption in many respects, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. One of the things is to recognize that the pandemic has actually accelerated the evolution of organizations. So a lot of the stopgap measures that people have taken have forced them into spaces that they have known they needed to develop, like virtual learning. and they just haven't invested at the level that they might have dabbled in it, or maybe they've pulled it off here and there. Suddenly they have a whole year where that's the only method of learning they can provide, and they have to become really good at it. Well, this kind of latent skill set is now being polished. It's being really, developed a lot. And so the people who are in charge of the businesses are looking at a lot of different aspects that way. And the smart ones are imagining what's possible, which is a lot about story. I mean, one of my favorite stories that helps people imagine, or helped people imagine what's possible, is Star Trek, the first one, the 1960s. So, we've got iPads now. We've gone through flip phones. We know how to beam particles around. Gene Roddenberry and his crew did an outstanding. There was interracial love. Did an outstanding job of putting before us images of a future that didn't yet exist, that were hopeful and positive. And so I'm working around scenario planning to work with CEOs to say, what's the best possible outcome 2 years from now, 1 year from now, as we look at the stresses that we're facing today? And how do we make sure that whatever short-term solutions we're coming up with are actually taking us towards our long-term goals?